What's up,
Hey guys.
sir? How we doing?
We get to touch
Let's
each
see in
other. It's
person.
so good.
So
It's
fun.
good.
Here we are.
All right, my man. I mean, clearly there's a direction this conversation needs to go,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I would maybe just to start it off here, you brought 500 builders from around the world, like literally around the world here. What are you hoping to get from this? What is the intention behind this? Was it just so you could sit up on that stage and have people clap when you made the big announcement?
No, definitely not. I think from the beginning of Base, we've always believed that builders and creators are going to be the ones who bring the world on chain. Builders are going to build apps, and those are going to give people and businesses real reasons to be on chain. And then creators are going to earn from their creativity, but then in earning from the creativity, realize, oh, wow, this is a transformative economy. Let me go tell my world about it. Let me go tell my audience. And that's how the whole world is going to move on chain, because they're going to hear it from people that they trust, that if you join this new economy and you use the apps and you create a new way, you're going to do better because the economy is going to work better for you. And so that belief, like the supply side belief of builders and creators are everything, has been at the absolute core of Base from the beginning. And so, when we did the launch of Base, we literally launched Base from Idlewild. You were there, next to Fest. It was the day before Fest. And that was partially because we wanted to be in a beautiful place, because it felt like we were launching something that could last for 100 years. And we wanted to do that surrounded by beauty. And then it was also because we wanted to be co-located next to creativity, because we wanted baked into our core. We wanted to be around creators from the beginning. Next year, we did Basecamp last year. Same thing. We did it before Fest. We brought builders and creators together. Same reason. Invest in them. And it's the same thesis here. Like the goal here is to take 500 builders and creators, who I really think about as the nucleus of Base. Although of course there's thousands of other builders and creators all around the world who I wish could have been here. And one of the really hard things for me about this Basecamp is we had to say no to so many people, because you can only have 500. Like literally, we couldn't find another venue. And then the second,
took over the entire
we took over the whole town,
Yeah.
right? And so, one of the things that I'm thinking about is is this the last time we'll ever be able to do this, right? Because the next time it's going to be so big that we can't say no to every, it may just have to be a conference next time. But the goal is to bring people together, to connect the dots in a way that's very hard remote, but is very easy in person, and to create a context where those dots can be connected, sparks can fly, and that people come out of it accelerated. And that in people, like all of these vectors being accelerated, that serves as massive acceleration for our global mission, which is building a global economy that increases innovation, creativity, and freedom.
Clearly the big news yesterday, and maybe the big energy behind this bigger vision here, is the announcement of the exploration.
Yep.
I think the language in that tweet and in your announcement was probably chosen very carefully.
Chosen very carefully.
Yeah, of a network token. Now, I think we've had many conversations over the years. We've had you on the show in the past. The consistent message from the Base team is that there will not be a token.
Yep.
And now you have a token. Maybe. What changed?
Yeah. When we started Base, we felt like a token was going to be a massive distraction. And the reason it was going to be a massive distraction was because what we saw in the industry was that tokens ended up basically clouding the vision and ability for builders and founders to understand, is the product that we're building working? And our feeling was we want to go out there and we want to build the best platform for builders, and we want it to stand on its own. We don't want to pay people to use our product. We want people to use our product because they love the product. And I think that has been the work of the last 2.5 years. It's make Base the best place to build. And then as we started to feel confident in doing that, we had the, achieving our North Stars, 1 second, 1 cent transaction, scaling. We then took the same strategy with creators. Let's go make Base the best place to create. And, we're not as far along there, but I think we're starting to see signs of product market fit. And so I think that clarity that we got in terms of how we build products would not have been possible if from the beginning you'd had this alternate financial incentive that was totally disconnected from the actual product that would cloud our vision and ability to build. The second reason why we said we didn't want to do a token from the start was we wanted to build a core of people who were here because they believed in the global economy, and who were here and they were intrinsically motivated to be here, to build and to create. And we wanted to have enough time to get that core sufficiently dense and sufficiently believers of this future that we're trying to build, such that if we changed, in, like this moment where we're shifting, when inevitably that attracts a next wave of people, which, you can kind of think about it as like the early adopters, and then I forget what's the next thing after the
Early majority.
like the early majority. When it attracts the early majority, which I would say is this like broader suite who might be financially motivated initially. They're like, ooh, I want a part of this base token. That core can show them the way. They can be this kind of like, the people come in and they're like, oh, I'm here for the money. And then the people who are the builders and creators be like, we understand that you want to make it in the new global economy. We want to make it in the new global economy too. But if you come at this from the extrinsic, short-term motivated, exclusively money-focused lens, you're actually not going to win. You're not going to succeed. The way you succeed is figuring out how do you contribute to the economy. And so by having the focus to build great products, which is a muscle that we've built and we will continue to focus on, and we're going to ignore the noise on the token, and then having the core of a community of the first builders and the first creators who could be the culture carriers, such that as we scale to the early majority, they convert them to having this base belief system around how we're going to grow the economy by everyone contributing. That those two things were basically the thing that gave us confidence to say, okay, we've known the whole time that tokens are the most transformative technology that we have invented in the last decade. And I'm as crypto native as it gets. Now that we have those two conditions met, let's open our minds and let's think about how we use this incredibly powerful technology to accelerate decentralization, align incentives between creators, builders, and communities, and to push the boundaries of what's possible on chain. And so that's not something that's going to happen overnight. I just said it. Were you guys in the AMA? No, you missed the AMA, but I was joking that there was a poly market where it's like, is Base going to launch a token in 2025? And I was like, it's at 20%. And I was like, it is a small market, it's 20%. I was like, oh, that means we did a good job, right? Like, because it's not going to launch in 2025, right? Like, if I had come up
over here just putting in a
if I had come on stage yesterday and I'd said we're exploring we're exploring a network token, and then we launched that network token in 2025, that would not have been genuine, right? Because like when you're exploring something, especially at the scale of Coinbase, we got to explore, we got to figure it out, we got to listen to people, and then we would have to build a whole product experience and token experience and have that actually work in an integrated way. And like that's not something you can do in like the 2 months before Christmas. And so I think the message for us is like, we're going to be authentic. I'm going to be authentic, even when it's freaking scary, because I was scared to do that yesterday. I still feel scared about whether, it was, are we too early? But we've always built in the open. I've always been authentic, and we're going to figure it out with all the people here and the millions of builders and creators that are coming to the base economy over the next couple of years.
So I think in your presentation yesterday, very quickly after you announced that you're exploring a token, the next slide was, we are Ethereum aligned.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Yeah, well, part of it was just like kill the FUD. Like we've always been building on Ethereum. And a core part of that is that from the beginning, we believe that we win together. And I think that actually showed up yesterday with the bridge to Solana. It's the same thing, right? Like people have always been like, oh, Base and Solana, they're so competitive. Like, you got to be at full war. And yeah, there are things that we are competitive with Solana on, but for the global economy to be successful, it all needs to be connected. And so from the beginning, we made the strategic decision that we wanted to be connected to Ethereum. And that's because the EVM is incredibly powerful, because Ethereum has built an incredibly decentralized validator set that provides better censorship resistance than any other network in the world. And because we've had an incredible collaboration with the team and the community from the beginning that is also expanding our ability to interoperate with more chains in the Ethereum ecosystem. And so I think as we, both said, hey, we're going to keep expanding and connecting to more people with the Solana bridge and other bridges coming, and said, hey, we are going to explore a token and figure out how this can accelerate our growth. We just wanted to be upfront and reaffirm that. Like, we're going to stay connected to Ethereum. We're going to keep working with the Ethereum Foundation to make L2s interoperate better. We're going to keep working on scaling EVM execution clients. We're going to keep doing the work that we've been doing now for 2.5 years to bring Ethereum to the world. And I think that was just something we want to get out of the way from a FUD perspective.
So, I mean, to me, the core mechanism of Ethereum alignment, especially with L2s, is the idea that ETH is money and ETH is the asset that's used to purchase anything on Airdrum today, anything on Base today. The idea of sort of switching, and maybe this is a limited view on what an L2 token might look like, but the idea of all of a sudden tokens being paired in Base feels like it would be a meaningful shift away from Ethereum alignment. I'm wondering if you can comment on that.
Well, it's interesting that you're saying tokens being paired in base, because when you look at other L2 tokens, like that's not generally something that's happened yet. And so, it's something we have to think about. And thank you for the suggestion.
Well, I would think maybe I'm not suggesting. I think
I'm kind of incorporating all this and learning about this in real time. In general, my feeling is like asset issuance will end up being really, really important. That Ethereum has established itself as a really powerful pair for asset issuance, and that will continue. And that there's like such a huge pie growing of assets that are going to come on chain, both existing assets that we know about, that is like the whole financial world, and then I think most excitingly for me, the assets that like we don't even know about, like we can't even reason about, because we haven't fully comprehended how this platform is going to reshape society and tokenize everything and bring it all into an everything economy. And I think that there's going to be so much opportunity for growth across the board that it's not something that I'm like particularly worried about, where it's like, what exactly does that shake out to be?
So is there sort of inspiration out there from other ecosystems that have launched tokens, or are you really trying to first principles develop something new? Like,
I think it's first principles, because we've always been first principles, but like you can look at the way we did the exploration. It was like, we're exploring a token, and then immediately I jumped on stage with the founder of Airdrome, the founder of Zora, and the head of product of Virtuals. And when I look at token innovation, like what better leaders do you have in the world on token innovation than those three people? Like Airdrome has invented this fair launch, like full revenue distribution model. Virtuals invented this kind of like pairing model for quote pairing for agents, and then Zora iterated on it again. I was talking to Brianna, and she was like, Zora made the flywheel perfect. That's what the head of product of Virtuals said, right? That was what they saw when Zora launched their flywheel. And so for me, like these are the people I surround myself with. These are the people I'm DMing like 24/7, 365, figuring out how do I help them and what can I learn from them. And so I think the signal and the message that I wanted to send in lining that up in that way was, hey, I'm listening to the experts, like the people who have been at the cutting edge, and we're going to keep listening to them. And they found out the night before so that they could be like somewhat prepared for the day. But like we're just starting to listen to it. And then B, as there are other experts out there, I want to listen to them. Like if you know something about tokens, and I'll just speak to the camera right now, if you know something about tokens that you think is going to be potentially a breakthrough for Base, come and talk to me. Come and talk to my team. We are exploring this. And what that means is that we're going out, we're asking questions, and we're trying to understand how can we use this incredibly powerful primitive to supercharge our mission. And that's not something that we have the answer to right now. It's not something that we figured out. It's not something where we're going to surprise and delight, boom, explore a token overnight, boo, woo. It's going to be something that we are going to deliberate on. We're going to think from first principles. We're going to take in the best of the community input, and then we're going to figure out if and when we want to do something that transforms the world.
I just really hope somebody clips that boo-woo that you just said there right now. We could get that on social media, maybe. Let's go.
I'm curious, as you look forward to this potential future where Base has a token, like what of the many superpowers that tokens introduce are you most excited by?
I'd say it comes back to the three things that I said yesterday, which is one, I think a token can play an important role in decentralization. And we as an L2, we've been making great progress on decentralization. We went from stage 0 to stage 1, security council, all these things. But as we're thinking about decentralizing sequencers and decentralizing the security council further, like there's all of this play that you basically get by having a distributed set of people all around the world who can participate in the network. And so I think that that's a really powerful use case. I think the second one is aligning incentives between developers, builders, creators, communities, the users who are actually using these products. I think that the people who are building and creating and using these products, they're the ones who are making the economy what it is. And so figuring out how you can integrate this economic tool into the way they contribute and the way they participate in the economy, such that they are incentivized to grow the economy and then they're rewarded for growing the economy, like that is a huge unlock. And I think we've seen people do it in like a relatively lossy way, where it's like, like kind of brute force. Like we're gonna like go do a token airdrop that's like billions of dollars, and then it kind of like trickles through, and like maybe it's effective. I am an incredibly rigorous person, and so for me, it's like, and I just talked about this in the AMA, like I want to go and figure out how do we measure people's contribution to the economy. Like, what is people's contribution to the GDP? Like, that's all on, it's starting to be on chain. Who have you onboarded? How much content have you created? How much has that content onboarded people? Because you can do first touch attribution. What apps have you built? How many users have those apps onboarded because you can do first touch attribution? Like, we've actually done a lot of this measurement stuff over the last 20 years of building the internet, but I don't think anyone's really applied it to, okay, now we're building an economy and we want to take the same mindset combined with this powerful new tool and figure out how do we just freaking supercharge the economy by aligning all the incentives. So I think that's the second part. And then the third part is like, I think that what Zora and Virtuals and Aerodrome have shown us is that you can do new things with crypto that have not been contemplated. I think some of this goes also like, I might get, I don't even know if I'm going to say that.
What do you mean though?
Like I think that there's a lot of pressure in the industry right now to maybe take models that come from Web 2 directly and apply those to these new crypto native assets. And like the one that I'm thinking about has like, like buyback and burn, where it's like it's a share buyback. And it's like, I think that that's an interesting mechanic, but it's a mechanic that's existed for like 50 years. And it's just being kind of like copied and pasted to the new model, which is interesting. I think important and could be an important part of value accrual. But the stuff that is most interesting to me is like, what is uniquely enabled by this? Like what Aerodrome said is what's uniquely enabled by this is instead of like, why do buyback and burn with revenue when you can just distribute the revenue natively through the network? Like, is that better? What Zora said and Virtual said is like, maybe we'll do I think Virtual maybe it does buyback and burn. You don't know, but they've said like, what if there's this other value accrual model that's like parent? Like the design space for how you make the economy run more efficiently and how you align incentives and how you decentralize is like wide open. And crypto is the greatest technology for freedom that has existed in the history of humanity. And so I think the third thing that I'm really excited about with exploring this token is figuring out how do we increase freedom and how do we use crypto as this transformative technology that lets us build systems in a new way that just works 10 times better. And I don't know what that is yet. That's why I'm going to go on a listening tour. And that's why we're exploring it, is because A, I have to do a lot of first principles thinking about it, but B, my gut tells me that it's going to be people at the edge. And I always want to be at the edge, but also I'm like, it's hard to be at the edge. It's tiring at the edge, and like, base is big and we're, following, like we're not gonna be the first person to launch a token. And here we are like a few years behind, but the people at the edge, the Zoras, the Aerodromes, the Virtuals, they're the ones who are like in the trenches seeing it. And I think there's so much to learn from them about how we can use this transformative technology to build a better system overall.
So you might not be the first group to launch a token, but you do have this unique dynamic where Coinbase is a public company. There's equity out there that people can go buy exposure to this ecosystem already. And now, so I think one of the questions that came through James from our Twitter account here was, how do you sort of balance off that sort of legal requirement to serve your Coinbase shareholders and also launch a token that can represent new types of value?
Yeah. I think it's a design space that there's a lot of figuring out to do, and I don't have an answer there. I will say, like, it's a model people are innovating on. Like even Zora, I think took a really interesting model with their token launch, right? They didn't say, hey, we're going to go create a foundation, or they said, no, we're actually going to create a model where the token accrues value via pairing and the labs company accrues value via fees, which it then can use to drive more growth in creators, which it can then drive more value back to the token. That's like totally novel, right? And I think Zora, and if you talk to Jacob, they would say, we have a fiduciary duty to shareholders, and this is going to grow the value of Zora Labs, and it's going to grow the value of the Zora economy, and that is delivering on that promise. And so, we have examples, and this is one of the things that I think, like sometimes gets a little bit lost in the noise, is like all of these coins and networks came from companies at some point. Like Solana came from Solana Labs, right? Like I saw Raj tweet like, we have to like kill the corpo chains with memes. I'm like, okay, like sure, you can look at that and be that, but also like Coinbase is a startup. Like I'm a startup, and yeah, we're a public company, and so that means we have to do things. But like Solana Labs was a startup too, and like we're going to be rigorous about this because we have always been rigorous about everything that we do, both with Base and with Coinbase. But like, bet against our ability to figure this out in a way that massively grows Coinbase and massively grows Base at your own risk. Because I'm not here to mess around. Brian's not here to mess around. When we started Base, the vision was to bring the entire world on chain. And we think that Base is the platform that does it. We think that Coinbase is the everything exchange that's going to connect all those assets, and they work best together. And so I think when it comes to value accrual, when it comes to figuring out the token, we have a ton to figure out, but we're going to figure it out together as we always have, and we are going to change the world.
Love it. We're getting the time check over
Getting
there.
the hook. And
Maybe very quickly, people who are
I think we I know we have other things, but
okay.
We got one more. Yeah. One more question.
You got one?
No, go for it.
Yeah, just think, obviously the entire ecosystem is lit up
Yep.
and pumped about this. I think you guys shared your hope to like bring other people, in this discovery process. So people who are, wildly excited about the possibility of
Yep.
the Base token, like how do they get involved? What should they start doing?
Yeah, well, I just said this in our AMA, but the one of the first things we're doing is we're actually like literally in parallel to this. We're hosting a live roundtable workshop on governance, which I think is like an important part of this as we think about decentralization. And so a bunch of kind of experts from our community are going to come there. Our team, who's leading the kind of exploration on token and thinking about governance, is leading that, and that's just gonna be a great place where like we're gonna talk about what's working well in the industry, what's not working well in the industry, what about token design is working well, and we're just going to listen and learn. And so I'm really excited to see the contributions that come out of that. And if you're watching this, that workshop is also going to be published. So all of the workshops from Basecamp will start being published tomorrow morning. They're going to get rolled out in 2 days, I think. And the goal is to make all of this accessible to everyone. So I think if you're excited about this, like that's a great place to start, is just like see what we talked about, see what new things you can add. And then if you have great ideas, reach out to me. Like my DMs are open. They're always open. And my goal when people DM me is to either do something that can help them in a couple minutes, or to connect them to the right person on my team. Or sometimes when people reach out to me and they maybe don't have something that's actionable, it's just to give words of encouragement and say, keep building, keep creating, you got this. And so if this is something you're excited about, find a way to get in touch with me, find a way to get in touch with Kabir Sadarangani, who's kind of leading the effort on my team and has been around on Base from before Base even existed. And we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to have you be a part of it. And I think one way of being a part of this is giving us, feedback and thoughts on the token. But if we are distracted by the token for the next however long, and that's all everyone wants to talk about, we will not succeed. And so the single best way to be a part of this is to build and to create and to keep that ethos of, we're going to figure out how to use this new powerful tool to align incentives and to decentralize and to push the boundaries of what's possible creatively. But at our core, we must keep building. We must keep creating. We must keep growing this economy, because if we do not grow the economy, we do not onboard billions of people into it, the token will not matter. And so that's the work, and we're excited to get to it.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Appreciate you hopping on, man. And I think you have a lot of work ahead, which I know
and clearly like.
Yeah. I think I love the optimism we're capturing here right now, because I think even in sort of the mentioning of the ability to measure impact to GDP, I think you sort of dip your head under that pond, under the water a little bit, and the complications of doing that are no easy task. So I think, maybe beyond the token, I know a lot of people are probably paying attention because they want to know what their airdrop is going to look like and how they get exposure. And if you think choosing who can come to an event is hard, this is going to be on absolute steroids. So, and yet I think that there's sort of the process to go through that every time is always operating with imperfect information, and you kind of need to be both values aligned and pragmatic at the same time. So I guess I just wish you very well in the work ahead. And I'm sure we'll have many more conversations as you go forward.
And the reason we do hard things is because hard things are the things that change the world. And I'm sure it's going to be hard. And I'm sure that whenever, sentiment will change and people will say, where's the Base token? And what we're going to do is what we always do, which is we're going to put our heads down and we're going to do the work, even when it's hard. So thanks for having me on, guys. And excited to make this happen together.
Let's go.
Thanks, y'all.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jesse. Good luck
Thanks for being here.